Okay. Should we start the song? Great. I could stand to go outside, always keep my options wide. Never mind the blinding skies, and oh, well, up and leave you. You can let yourself feel sad. Government make the good go bad. Broken token in a subway ad, and oh, well, up and leave you. Keep the faith, don't toe the line, and watch you through your two eyes. Leave the light still on inside, and watch you through the sunrise. Leave the fighting go behind, where all the stupid fear dies. Keep the light still on inside, and watch you through the sunrise. Yourself to a nursery rhyme, making bacon just to take your dime, and all will up and leave. Here we are in a Brooklyn dive at a 11225. Take the tune down for 125, and the time we have will keep the faith, don't go the line, and watch you through your two eyes. Leave the lights still on inside, and watch you through the sunrise. Leave the fighting go behind, where all the stupid fear dies. Keep the lights still on inside, and watch you through the sunrise. Keep the faith, don't toe the line, and watch you through the sunrise. Leave the lights still on inside, and watch you through the sunrise. Leave the fighting go behind, where all the stupid fear dies. Keep the lights still on inside, and watch you through the sunrise. Nice. From the Center for the Study and Teaching of Writing at The Ohio State University, as you can tell by looking around, this is Writers Talk. I'm Doug Dangler. I'm here today with members of the supergroup Girlyman, who are in town to do a 6-string performance, and then they'll be off to other environs, but they're here enjoying how cold and inhospitable Columbus is right now, and we are going to work from that angle, and they've already performed a song that we'll talk about, and we'll talk about how they do their writing, how they work together as a group. You're all traveling in one large red van, so if you see a large red van on the freeway, please stop and see if the contents are Girlyman. So let's let everybody do an introduction, and we'll start over here.
I'm JJ. I just joined. I'm the drummer.
Okay.
I'm Doris.
I'm Ty.
I'm Nate.
Okay. And they are all, now you, there's a couple people that met in elementary school, and I think that's Doris and Ty,
That's right, yeah.
And then Nathan joined later, and you joined just a little bit after that, or somewhat after that.
Yeah.
So tell me about working together as coming up from elementary school. When did you start writing together? When did you start working on songs?
Well, we started singing together when we were teenagers, probably 11 and 12. Ty was starting to learn guitar, and we had just gotten into Simon and Garfunkel, and we were learning harmonies and stuff like that. But then I guess it wasn't really till high school, and she started writing songs. In college, I started writing songs, and we started working together with original music.
Okay. So how did you figure out what kind of original music you wanted to do? You started off with Simon and Garfunkel, and I think I heard somebody warming up with some Simon and Garfunkel maybe a little earlier. So how did, with that influence, there's a lot of really interesting things that Simon and Garfunkel do, or basically Simon does with lyrics and song melodies and things like that. Tell me how that influenced you.
Well, I think that Simon and Garfunkel really grabbed us at that age because it was so different from anything that was on the radio, and it was, really lyrically complex and musically really interesting, and so we just tended to go towards that kind of music. And so, later on when we heard more music from that time period, the Mamas and the Papas, also very harmony-based music, that really influenced us. And then later on we heard the Indigo Girls, and we were just like, this is the path that we want to be on, is this, harmony-driven, very lyric focused music. So it was just really clear to us.
All right. How do you know when you've really gotten a good lyric, and can you give me an example of one of your favorite ones? I noticed on your website you have all your lyrics under the heading "In Case We Mumble" or something like that. How do you know when you've really got something that you want to keep? What's the...
I mean, usually it just feels good singing it, and the imagery feels, right to describe an emotion. Or people say, that was a really great lyric. You say, oh, thanks.
Okay, that's always the positive side. Where's the, now, have you had lyrics where you've performed it for people a couple times and they said, that lyric doesn't really do it for me, or you just know the keepers because people praise them, and then later on you drop the ones that nobody's talking to you about?
I don't respond very well to that kind of constructive or deconstructive criticism. Yeah, I mean, if someone says that they like it, that's great, but for me, it tends to just be about, do I like it? Or occasionally, do Doris and Ty like it? Okay. I mean, generally, with the most creative aspects of the band, it's the kind of thing where, with songs and songwriting, if we like it, then it doesn't matter a whole lot whether or not other people like it or not, because everyone has their own taste, and there's no right or wrong. There's no
way to please everyone either.
Exactly.
Do you have to work to please each other in the group? I take it you're always pretty much in agreement with the songs, or are you having to vote sometimes? Does a song ever get voted off the island because it wasn't a survivor?
I think we're pretty big fans of each other, and so we really like what we bring to the group, and that's been my experience.
Sorry to be so positive.
Yeah.
I know.
You want the drama of it.
No, I mean,
Well, I want to know
there are
how
sometimes there are songs that we write that don't ever, they, for whatever reason, they don't come together as a Girlyman song. Like, one of us will bring a song in, and it'll be a great song, and usually that person will feel really wonderful about it, and it just won't click as becoming a song for the band. And so, I mean, with most creative things, we need to sort of be able to let go of it.
We cry ourselves to sleep, but then
Okay, right, good. Well, I mean, the thing that I found really interesting is that the lyrics on your page, there's usually like one person identified. I think you're the lyricist for Everything's Easy. And there were other songs. Bird on a Wire, I think, was your song.
Right.
And no, you don't get out of class, by the way, if you could hear that. That was the
I know, go, sorry.
Bill. Yeah,
No, I sort of don't want to punch someone. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
a little twitching there
totally,
for OSU's antiquated bell ringing system. You're all done, go home. But so you retain sort of the idea of the ownership of the lyrics, right? You've got stuff that you wrote and stuff that other people wrote. Does that doesn't extend to the sound of it, the melody? Does the person that writes the lyrics come up with the melody as well? So it's really their song, or is that a group thing?
The credits that we put down for the songs, like the lyrics on our website, are also for the music. So there's some songs where Ty has done a majority of the lyrics and I've done the majority of the music, and or any other combination thereof, and we usually just credit both of us as the writers.
Okay. So what's your favorite song that you've written? What one do you really like to pull out at parties and say, this is my favorite piece of who I am?
Well, I wrote a song for this last album called Trees Still Bend, and I just really felt like it spoke to where I was coming from at the time. I was going through a really bad breakup, and just reflecting on how relationships end, but how you continue to go on with your life. And it was just one of those songs that kind of felt channeled, like it just all came out and I wasn't really thinking about it. And usually I like those ones the best because it feels the easiest and also the most natural. So.
How about for you, Nate?
Well, it's hard to say. I read that there are multiple songs that I like. There isn't any one. Usually, there is, for a week, and then I kind of get tired of that one, and then I like to go on to another one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any favorites? I gotta be and then you're next to think about.
Well, JJ actually just joined the band in the fall, so she hasn't had a chance to write any of the songs.
Completely unfair question.
It's a totally unfair question.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
You write songs though, so it is, you do write, so it's just, she hasn't yet written any of our songs,
Okay.
any Girlyman songs yet.
Now, you said Girlyman songs. Tell me what defines a Girlyman song. What makes it one of yours and gives that a unique stamp?
Maybe JJ should answer.
See, now you're putting her on the spot as I did
exactly,
earlier.
yeah, it's great.
good.
I'd say probably the harmony, for
Harmony.
sure, yeah, and they have a really particular style, so,
Okay.
which is, I think would be hard to describe in words, but that's definitely the mark or the stamp, that's what I would say, for
Okay.
sure.
All right.
Yeah.
And so it's not just one key that you sing in. No.
That would get pretty boring.
Yeah. So tell me about the name Girlyman. On your website, you said it's supposed to be a playful name, a fun name. What kind of names did you go through before you decided that this one was it? Was there other things in the running? What made it a playful name for you?
Well, we thought of trying the Muramatsu Greenstein Borofsky explosion, but the domain name was taken.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that was
that
rough.
always
We had to
happens.
Consider other options. You know,
Okay.
it just,
We were really bummed out.
We
Yeah,
were.
yeah,
That was our
totally.
first choice.
Well, you could be, like MTTB. I can't even get all the letters.
MGB.
Should we just NRBQ? Just call it NY. Wait, what was it?
IMDb.
NKOTB.
MISE, yeah.
IMHO.
MOUSE.
These would all be really good, but
Girlyman just felt like us. It just
Yeah.
felt really fun and sort of, having fun with gender, which we do, and just, not taking itself too seriously.
Okay. And you're also touring, I think, or at least you're backed up today by Lucy Wainwright Roche.
correct.
And I'm curious if you've had the opportunity to do a lot with her. Do you guys just show up at the same venues, or is she sort of following you around in a smaller car?
She is following us around in a smaller car. To be fair, any car is a smaller car than our van.
You
but-
do have a very large van. I saw it
Yes.
from about a block away.
It actually doesn't feel that big in there these days. It's
Quite cramped.
five people and all the instruments that we have in a full drum kit.
And
It's
winter and coats and.
and a lot of
Right.
food and
Backpacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell me how you negotiate songwriting on the road. What's your way of working together? Is one person's driving? Do you ever do that? I'm curious. Do you have to have a special place that you go to write your songs, or do you do that when you're not touring, which is the case with a lot of bands, I think?
Yeah, for me, rarely. I rarely write on the road just because there's so much else going on. But sometimes I write lyrics when I'm just sitting and looking out the window because my mind goes blank, and then I can sort of get a lot of stuff down. So I can do some of that work. But the musical stuff, I have to wait until I get home.
Okay.
I can kind of write anything, anywhere. Often during our shows, I make up spontaneous songs while the two of them are tuning their instruments. So, it can happen at any time. It's not hard for me to produce something. Whether or not it's something that I actually like or want to ever play again is a different question.
Right. And I generally don't write on the road just because there's so many distractions and you don't really have that much privacy. But there have been times when, Nate has I have this, chord progression and let's write some lyrics. So, okay. So we'll just go in and write something down. And so depends on how focused you are.
I think we all tend to write more at home than on the road, but there's songs, there was a song that Ty was driving and I had a guitar behind her and we just put it all together, during that time. Doris and I wrote one in a hotel room, there have been a lot of different ways that we've been able to write songs.
When we remember to do it, it can really happen anywhere, but
Yeah.
there's a lot to do on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. And I read that you had a $10,000 mic that really helped out on the most recent album.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm showing my age. The most recent
Record.
Yeah.
8-track.
Album, I feel like album is the same as record.
Yeah.
Really?
Album doesn't mean vinyl, or LP. I think
Album,
is
I think that's
That's
that
fair?
works.
album.
Okay.
I say
Okay.
album.
Okay, good.
Me too.
Yeah.
So
So
younger and hipper than I am, so you can use that as long as I'm, staying in the game in some way, that. Tell me about the ways that you do write when you're off the road. I'm curious about, do you have any particular places that you go, any particular things that you have to do? You have to be, for your best writing, do you have to be in a writer's garret? You have to be sequestered. What is your way of coming up with songs?
I have to vacuum.
Okay.
Everything has to be clean. No. Sometimes I know.
I was like, wow, I didn't know that about
I
Doris.
have to dust all the shutters. No. Usually I like to do it in my house, and I have to be alone. That's like the main thing. And usually it's like, sitting with my guitar and just coming up with chord progressions that feel interesting to me. And then
So it's music first.
music
then
for me
lyrics.
usually comes first. I've started lyrics first and then tried to put music, but it doesn't seem as, I don't know. So finding a chord progression that I like, and then usually the lyrics just kind of appear after that. And so it's kind of...
Okay, and JJ, I don't want to leave you out. I feel like we're forgetting to ask you, but you've written some songs. Tell me about your songwriting.
I usually collaborate with other people, so most of what I've done is writing music to someone else's words. And a lot of times it'll be stuff that maybe I've come up with before that I can kind of use again. I haven't done much like if someone has a melody line, try and fit chords to it, and it's something I'm really interested in. We're actually going to work on some of that with some ideas that I have. But I think I'm more of a collaborator than a writer myself. And I think I'm a better editor than coming up with something from scratch. So I've done more arranging and that kind of a thing than just songwriting.
How do you do the editing? I'm curious. That's a really interesting phrase to use for a songwriter. Oh, I can edit your song.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah.
You just say, this phrase doesn't work for me.
Totally. I mean, it depends on how open somebody is to it, but, there's just, this isn't feeling right, or, many times there's just not enough dynamics. Somebody's just all the way through the whole song and having ebbs and flows and places where they might stop playing and then come back in at another time. So even more of a musical arrangement, editing, that type of a thing, but, also feeling-wise as well, or if they're trying to cram a bunch of words in that don't really work. Editing lyrics gets pretty touchy, and people are usually pretty attached to it. So I don't do a lot of that unless they're really open.
This
to
is
it,
what you
but-
all have to look forward to. By the way, she's
No.
throwing out now.
I mean, a lot of the songs that we have written recently have been collaborations like that. Oftentimes, one of us will come up with a kernel, like, with an idea, like something that the song, then the rest of the song comes from. And I think songwriting, just like any other form of writing, involves, two stages. There's one where you are just creating, where you're just writing, and you're just trying to get something out. And it's usually best to not think about editing at all during that time. And then there's the editing phase where you tinker and you try to sort of hone it a little bit.
Make it more cohesive.
Ty is an excellent editor,
I'm sort of a compulsive
particularly
editor.
with lyrics.
It's true.
A compulsive editor, does that mean you do it when people aren't looking and you just
I said, "Just give me that.
Scribble, scribble.
Let me just try something."
Tell me about the song that you've worked on like that. Did that happen with Everything's Easy? Did that happen with Bird on a Wire? Any of these songs? Or is there another example that you really
Let's see.
think of as a prime example?
There's a reason.
Tell Me There's a Reason
Yeah.
was a song on our latest CD, and that was one that Doris wrote the initial version of it, and then she was like, well, I've got this song, it's it's got something, or I have this idea, and then so she and I like worked on that and fleshed it out, and then we ended up keeping the chorus of that, but then Ty and I were driving the van up somewhere up northeast, and Ty was driving and was like, maybe we could work on that song. And so we came up with a new verse and a new melody and new lyrics for it. And it was
So a completely different song.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because the chorus of that song to me had such like emotional content, and it was so passionate, and the verses weren't matching up to that for me. And I thought, well, what if we took that feeling that's in the chorus and tried to create a story that, that with the verses. And so that was actually really fun to do, to just, try to go into that feeling and work from there.
And this is why we don't have a studio, ladies and gentlemen. This right here, this interaction. That is really an and it just keeps going on.
Sorry.
It's live broadcast.
If it's still funny, we'll keep going.
Yeah.
If one of the four of us thinks it's funny, then
how does that work for you on stage, by the way, that if it's funny, we keep going with it? Is that a problem?
Yes.
Occasionally?
Yes.
Occasionally, yeah.
We have to remind ourselves that we're on stage.
Occasionally, we do need to pay attention to see if anyone else in the room is actually laughing with us. Yeah, totally.
Well, that's where your editing comes in, because then you come in back later and you say, no, cut, this phrase isn't working for me. Tell me about some of your influences. I'm especially interested in if you have influences that are surprising. If you're into death metal on the side, and you don't usually acknowledge that, but you recognize that it's something that comes out into your songs. Not necessarily death metal, by the way.
Yeah.
Not to disparage it, but.
I mean, I'm a big Stevie Wonder fan. Like, I probably listen to Stevie Wonder more than I listen to anyone else. But I don't know if that comes out. I hope it comes out in my music. I think it probably doesn't. So,
Okay.
No.
I liked the Bee Gees when I was growing up.
Oh,
Bee Gees are great.
Okay. I often sing in that range. It's staying alive. It's the best I can do with the range that I'm at.
Yeah.
What other kinds of music or writing have you thought about doing? Does anybody, lyrics and poetry are so similar, right? There's so much crossover. One is, I think, meant to be sung, the other is meant to be spoken, but do you dabble in other areas? Do you do other things that you're just working on right now, and you haven't yet published the great American novel, but it's right there. So close.
Got it right here.
I gotta work on my screenplay.
It's interesting because for me, like, I get into such a habit of being a songwriter that sometimes I'll have a creative impulse and I'll just imagine that it must be a song, but it's not, and sometimes I'll just realize it's a poem, or it's, it's a photograph, or it's something, it needs to be channeled in some other way.
What do you do with that stuff? Do you file it away in a drawer? Do you keep it around and see if you can rework it into a song?
I don't think every creative impulse needs to be used. That's really important to me, is not to always have to like make something bigger out of every creative thought, but to just kind of let it be what it is, and then just let it go too, because you want them to keep coming. You don't want to just get obsessed with like your one great idea.
I'm looking for that one great idea, and someday I will become obsessed. What about the rest of you? Any other things that you're working on?
I was mostly a visual artist before I was a musician, so I've done like little books, kind of kids books or funny books with stick figures and people and characters and stuff like that. I like doing that.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's so many different ways of being creative in life that are really all tied together more than people tend to think. I think, anything in the arts, or cooking is often a creative expression for me. And we're just making things up. I had a friend who once just was going around New York City taking pictures of the different puddles that she saw, like on the sidewalks, and she didn't, she didn't have an exhibition. She didn't, have a show at a gallery or anything. She was just doing that for herself, for her own creative fulfillment. And I think we all can find different ways of expressing that, and I think, like Ty says, it can be healthy to do that and not necessarily have it be a thing, like a show or something that's like put on display. It's so much of creativity is just about the creating part and not about anyone actually hearing it or having it live beyond the initial creation. And generally, I think the more that you are creative that way, the easier it is to write, to do the kinds of creativity that you actually that you really want to do. The more ways that you can do that. And like anything, like any writing teacher would say, I mean, like with, or people like, who wrote Writing Down the Bones?
Natalie Goldberg.
Natalie Goldberg, right. And I mean, one of the big parts of that was to just keep writing, even if it's terrible. And it will be terrible.
Especially if it's terrible.
Especially if it's terrible, keep writing. And the idea being that eventually, if you keep writing things that you think are terrible, you'll stop paying attention to the fact that you think they're terrible, and you'll let it come out. Because a lot of times, the best things seem like bad ideas when you're first writing them. And you have to just get it out. You have to get that whatever's inside of you out. Small children can do it so easily. They can make up a story, they can make up a song, tell you the story for a movie, they can paint a picture. They don't
put on a show.
They don't think about it. They're not self-conscious in the way that at some point as adults we all become. And I think it's really important to tap into that source of creativity that all of us still have. We just try to think ourselves out of it.
Well, our editor comes into it.
Right, yeah,
Right,
blame the
exactly.
editor.
Right,
I think
exactly.
Clearly you found the
JJ's fault.
scapegoat.
Right, totally.
These two.
JJ's, you're the reason I can't write songs, JJ.
Well, on that note, I always like to end with some blame and
I'll take it.
some argument. And I want to thank you very much
You're very welcome.
for
Thank you,
coming
Doug.
to Writers Talk's glorious studio.
Yes.
Today,
Yeah,
this is our new several $1 million enhanced studio.
Yeah, I specifically request this light for
Right,
myself
yeah,
here, 'cause
yeah.
I look really
Yeah,
good in
be-
the fluorescence.
Right, because the palest one here isn't going to be the worst in these lights. Yeah, sure. Yeah, the bald guy. All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And
Thank you.
we will have some end music from you. And from the Center for the Study and Teaching of Writing at The Ohio State University, this is Doug Dangler saying, keep writing. Okay.
Just sit there. Just make loving eyes at me while I do this. It's cloudy today, but no rain came. I sat and waited outside. The trees and the wind were all shaking, but the stars pass us by. So I turned on the news for an hour, and Matt Lauer was shaking his head. He said that the oceans are rising, so put your children to bed. Still on most days I hear myself say everything's easy, but you never know. Wherever I go is a way.
A rocking chair, a cinnamon pear. Look up in the air, you're a millionaire. And if I could be anywhere I could be, I'd be anywhere. Because my life is only mine to hold. The nights are cold and it's snowing in Vermont, but all that I want is here in the clear light of the streetlight. Still on those days I hear myself say everything's easy, but you never know. Wherever I go is a
I guess I was dreaming. The oceans were steaming, and when I started to wake up, I dreamt Derek Jeter at bat with St. Peter. He hit a home run, and Jesus won the pennant and
The cinnamon pear, look up in the air. You're a millionaire. And if I could be
Trees and
anywhere,
we're
I
all
could be
shaking.